Hi guys, welcome to our lesson for today. So today we're going to be looking at analyzing investments and loan options, right? So here we're going to look at when a bank gives you different investment options, what exactly do you need to do in order to take the best one? And what does it mean that this is the best investment? Those are such questions that we're going to try and answer. The other question is, if you are getting a loan, is it better to pay it in 5 years, in 15 years, or in 25 years? I don't know. We are going to try and calculate and see which one is the best option, because some people think to pay in a lesser time is better than in a longer time. We will look at them and try to make an informed decision. But for now, let's look at our leading question for this particular lesson. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, what is a pyramid scheme and how does this work, right? I know that we normally hear our parents or our siblings saying, "Yay, there's a scheme where if you pay 200 rands and then take maybe 5 people under you, then you will get a total of like 10,000 rand." You know, those kinds of things, right? What exactly are these things and how do they really work? That's what we're going to try and answer with one of the questions here. And then remember, we're going to analyze some loan options. We're also going to analyze investment options. And then lastly, we're going to look at the pyramid schemes. But for now, let's look at investment options. Now, the keywords under investment will be, you need to know what is an annuity. You need to know how to work with the compound interest, and then you also need to work with the future value annuity. Remember, annuities, these are payments that are made in regular intervals, right? Payments in regular intervals. I'll just say reg intervals, right? And then when you talk about the compound interest, this is normally interest on interest, right? Interest on interest. So meaning on interest. This simply means that whenever you are given a compound interest investment option, it means if I say 12% per annum, the first year you are going to get 12% of maybe 1,000 rand, if that's your initial investment. The second year you are going to get 12% of what you have at the end of first year, not the initial amount you started with, right? Even the third year, you're going to get 12% of what you have for the previous 2 years. So at all times, it's all about what you have in the bank and not what you started with to start the investment. So that's what I mean when I say interest on interest. Then, the last one is the future value annuity. Future value annuity, this is to make regular payments in order to move from 0 rands in your bank to an X amount of money in your bank, which is normally more than what you started with, right? That's what future value annuity is about. Remember, the formula that we use under future value is F is equals to X into 1 plus I all raised to N minus 1 divided by I, right? Where we know that F is our future value, X is the amount that is paid at regular intervals, N is the number of payments, and I is the interest rate as a decimal. So if I give you 5%, you need to divide it by 100 in order to do away with the percentage, and then write it as a decimal number, please. Now, whenever you are trying to evaluate an investment, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Do you need a lump sum when you are starting the investment, right? Is it an investment where you are just putting in maybe 100,000 and you are leaving it out like that, right? Or do you need to pay on a regular interval basis? Then the other thing is, what is the interest rate? This is the most important thing among all the other things that you actually need. Because if you don't know what interest you're getting, then honestly, we can't call it an investment, because then you don't know what your return is going to be. And then you also need to know what is the compounding period. Remember, Compounding period is about how often you get interest, right? How often. Meaning if I say, excuse me, compounded monthly, it means you get it on a month-to-month basis, right? 12 times in a year. If they say semi-annually, that means it's every 6 months, so it's twice a year. If they say quarterly, there is 4 quarters in a year, so that means it's 4 times a year. If they say daily, it means 365. So those are just the options that I'm talking about when I say you need to understand what the compounding period is. And then what is the installments that need to be paid on a month-to-month basis? Because some investments, you start with a specific amount, maybe a minimum of 1,000 rand, right? And then thereafter you can make maybe payments of 250 after starting with the 1,000 rand as an initial amount that you need to deposit into your investment. The last thing will be, what is the expected payout? You don't just go to a bank or a financial institution and open an investment account without running the numbers just to see what is the expected. It might not be that because of inflation and all of those things, but at least it gives you an idea of what you need to expect after your investment. The keywords about compounding periods, remember I said it's annually, so this means once a year. And then quarterly means 4 times in a year. Biannually, which is the same as semi-annually, means twice a year. And then semi-annually and biannually, they mean one and the same thing, right? That's one of the things that you need to just be aware of, because they do use these terms when it comes to investments. Now, when you look at the concept of timelines, right? Some tips, you always need to make sure you start with T0. Now, this is the initial amount, right? Initial amount that you are depositing, that is deposited, right? In simple terms, when you, with the previous example that I just made of us paying an initial amount of 1,000 rand, and then paying 250. So it means at T0, you're going to draw an arrow going inside and then say this is 1,000 rand, right? Why is the arrow going inside? It's because this is a deposit. And then whenever a person then decides, maybe at the end of 2 years, I have an emergency, so I need to withdraw some money, then you will say maybe this is, let's say, 1,500. I'm sure maybe it would be that much by that time. Then they need to withdraw that 1,500, and then whatever that's remaining will be left in the bank to mature in the duration that is yet still to complete in terms of what is remaining. And then the last thing will be the time intervals. When I talk about the time intervals, sometimes you'll find that the interest for the first year is different from the interest that we get on the second year, which might be different with the interest that you're gonna get for maybe the next 3 years, which will end up being 5 years, right? So in the 5 years of your investment, you can have maybe 5% here as the initial investment, and then maybe it goes to 7%, and then because of maybe the economy is a bit bad, and then they drop it and maybe to 6.5%, right? Because of maybe what is happening with our economy at the time. So this is very important, and I'm going to show you this with an actual question on how to apply this thing that I've just told you. Now, the very first question says, Percy invests 12,000 in a savings account and is given an interest rate of 10% per annum compounded quarterly for 3 years. What exactly is this? So it means when you want to analyze this, so we're firstly going to draw the timeline, right? And say T0, right? T0 will be, they said, 12,000. This will be 12,000, right? That is the initial amount that Percy is investing. And then this is given an interest of 10% for 3 years. So for 3 years until T3, it means this person is getting 10% compounded quarterly, which I'll just say CQ, right? And then we continue again. 2 years after the initial investment, he deposited a further 5,000 into the savings scheme. Now, let's understand what this means, right? We are still on this number line. So here by T2, this person decided to deposit an extra 5,000, maybe because they got a bonus or there is something that happened that gave them a bit of more money and they don't need it. They said, no, let's add it into the investment. Now, the interesting thing about this is we are then told that after 3 years of opening the investment, the interest changes to 10.8 till the start of the 4th year. In simple terms, from T3 to T4, the interest is 10.8. So T3 and T4, the interest here is a 10.8%. And then lastly, and this is on a biannually, right? So meaning twice a year. So I will say compounded semi-annually. I can just say compounded semi-annually like that. And then the last thing they say is he then decides to keep his money, invested for a further 2 years at an interest rate of 12% per annum compound interest. Now, let's understand this. From T4 up until T6, this person now gets 12% interest that we have. Now, if we show this on a timeline, this is how my investment is going to look like. So this line means that the 5,000 remains in the bank for the 4 years, right? The 12,000 remains in the bank for the whole duration. And then lastly, the interest changes as soon as you get to T3, and then it changes again when you get to T4. Now, you need to determine the investment after 6 years. Firstly, we need to look at the investment at the end of the 2 years, right? Because the interest changes after that, but not yet the interest, because it only changes on the 3rd year. So there's a new amount that is added. That's why we're only focusing until 2nd year. So remember, this is going to be A is equals to, firstly, we're going to look at what was the compounding period here for the first 2 years. The compounding period was compounded quarterly, right? So this simply means it's going to be AP into 1 plus I to the exponent of n. And this is 12,000 that we started with. This remained in the bank for 2 years at an interest of 10%, which is 0.1 divided by 4, because this is compounded quarterly, and this will be 2 multiplied by 4 up there. Why? Because in the 2 years, this person is getting the interest 8 times. Now, to calculate this, we will then go straight to the calculator, say 12,000 into 1 plus 0.1 divided by 4, all raised to the exponent of 8. Then you find what that is. So this person will now have 14,620. So this will be 14,620. I'm going to write the decimals as they are because we are not at the final answer. So this will be 83477. Let me just verify that's the correct one. Yes. And then now this is now the amount that this person has when we get to T2 here, right? But they added an additional 5,000. So in simple terms, we're going to look at what is the investment of the 2nd year up to the 3rd year, right? When the interest is still 10%. So remember, I had said A will be equals to P into 1 plus I to the exponent of n, right? And then this will be 14,620, and I think it's on the board there. So it will be this amount, which is 8347. You're going to add 5,000 to this because this person deposited 5,000. And then that will be my new principal value. So I will say answer into 1 plus 0.1 divided by 4. And this is for 1 year, so it will just be to the exponent of 4. And then now this person has 21,657. So 21,657, certain cents there, right? Now, we now need to look at from the 3rd year to the 4th year, because remember the interest changed to 10.8 in that year. So it's still the same amount. Nothing changes with the amount that we have here. So it will just be answer into 1 plus 0.108 divided by 4, or this is 2 because it was semi-annually, right? And then to the exponent of 2 multiplied by 1, which is just 2. Just remember that this is for semi-annually. And then the answer for this will be 24,059 rands and a couple of cents after that, right? This is now where? Now we are at T4. So we now need for the remainder of the investment, which is just for 2 years. So for 2 years will be the last amount that we're now going to do. We're just going to say this 24,000, 1 plus the interest now is now 12%, rather, not was. So this is 0.12 divided by, they did not specify on what the compounding is. So I'm just going to say divide by 1, because if they don't say it, it means it's compounded annually, right? And this is to the exponent of, that is 2 years. So that will be 2. So this person will end up having 30,180 rands. So the answer to this will be 30,180. 180 and how many cents? 76 cents. And that's how you're then going to do it. But please make sure you understand that the time intervals of how the investment is structured matters the most, especially if the interest fluctuates, increases, decreases, and all of that. So you need to be sure on what are the time intervals. Guys, that was just the introduction of what a timeline is, which I know by now you're familiar with. But for now, I want us to take a quick ad break. Then when we come back, we're going to look at some more questions on loans to try and analyze some loans. Please stay tuned. I'll be back just now. Hi guys, welcome back. So we are still looking at analyzing investments and loans, right? So we looked at analyzing investments and we used a timeline because we can talk about a timeline in an investment because there's certain intervals that change, especially when it comes to you investing a lump sum amount. Now we're going to look at how to analyze loans, right? So we're going to look at when a bank gives you different options and then try to look at how to take the best option for you. It can be based on the number of years you want to pay the loan, how much interest you want to pay back, or how much you actually are willing to pay on a month-to-month basis. Because remember, if you want to pay less on a month-to-month basis, it means your loan is going to take longer to amortize, right, to become zero. If you pay a bit more, then it means it might take a short period of time in order for it to amortize. But anyways, let's look at the actual questions and try to analyze these things. Please remember the present value formula, because that's very important. Now, whenever we look at the concept of loans, right, remember simple interest, especially when we talk about the hire purchase, which is HP. Hire purchase is when our parents are buying a couch, maybe that costs 23,000, but because we like it so much, we end up taking it on a month-to-month installment. And then compound interest as well is normally what the banks charge you when you take out a loan from them. And then there's a present value annuity that you need to remember. The present value has to do with the money you get now, only to pay back at a later stage. Now remember, the formula for the present value is normally given by P equal to x into 1 minus 1 plus I to the exponent of minus n divided by I, right? We know that P is the balance outstanding. How much do you still owe the bank or a shop for that matter, because it's not only banks that give you loans. And then X will be the value of installments. How much do they want you to pay on a month-to-month basis? N is the number of repayments. So if I give you 5 years, it means it's 60 months, right? Because in 5 years, there's 60 months. And then I, lastly, will be the interest rate as a decimal. Now let's actually look at how to evaluate a loan. The first thing, remember with the investment, we said you start by looking at the lump sum. With the loan, you look at an interest rate. Guys, there's really no need for you to just get into a financial institution and take the very first interest rate that they give to you. No, you can negotiate based on certain factors like your credit score when you start working, all those kind of, and how much you can pay in terms of affordability, all those concepts. So you need to make sure you are clear on what the interest is. Most of the time, banks give you an interest that maybe is 2 plus prime, prime lending rate that the South African Reserve Bank it gives loans at. And then you look at all of that, and then that's what will inform you whether this is a good loan or not. It's not about I'm going to pay 1,000 rand, but you will realize that you pay 1,000 rand per month for 36 months for something that costs 7,000, and you end up paying more than 36,000 because it's just 1,000 rand, right? It's a lot of money. Please make sure you are clear on that. The interest plays a big part. Then also, how does the interest rate compare to inflation? Why is this? Because you will see that when maybe you open an, let's say a retirement annuity, right? Where when you retire, you're going to take money. You will see that they will say every year your amount that you pay will increase based on what the rate of inflation is. Why? Because we don't want it to be below the rate of inflation, because then you're not going to make any money from your investment. So even with a loan, you need to look at this interest rate that the bank is giving me or any financial institution. Exactly how does it compare to the inflation? Is it very far away from the inflation? And what is the expected movement of the inflation? Is it expected to go up or go down? But going down has always really been a very rare concept. And then also, how does the interest rate compare to investments? Because you might consider rather investing for a certain period and then taking the money and buying what you want upfront without taking a loan. So that's such things that you need to look at. And then what is the compounding period, right? How are they paying? How are they charging this interest to you, right, on your account? How are they charging it? Are they charging it on a month-to-month basis? Every 4 months? They recalculate every year, every 6 months? You need to understand. Then installments that you need to pay. And then lastly, how long is the loan period? If they say 20 years, yeah, it might be a great offer, but depending on what your needs are really at the time. Now, Mavis wants to take out a loan of 750,000, right? And this becomes the principal amount. Now, she decides to approach 3 different banks. I love Mavis. I really, really love Mavis because this is a great thing, right? You don't just go and then say, the first bank I go to, I must take their loan. You compare them. Hence, she went to 3 banks. She plans to start repaying the loan immediately and then calculates that she can afford a monthly repayment of between 5,500 and 7,000. This is a really, really good lady. So she knows, I want to take 750,000. I can afford to pay anything up between 5,500 as my minimum maybe, but you know, minimum can be 2,000, right? But my maximum must be 7,000. I am not willing to go past the 7,000 as a monthly payment because that's maybe my budget at the time. That's what Mavis is doing. Now, Bank A starts by saying, let's give you a repayment period of 30 years. And then the interest becomes 8.5% compounded monthly. Okay, let's think about that. This other bank says, how about we give you 20 years? But the interest is now a bit more by 0.5, which becomes 9%. The last bank says, hey, we can give it to you at 15 years, right? That you paid in 15 years, but the interest that you need to pay must be 1.5 more than what the 20 years interest is. So what exactly do you think we're gonna need to do here? You're going to need to compare these and see which one is the best option. Comparing means how to go about calculating in terms of what is the monthly payment that this person is going to pay, or what is the total amount that I am going to pay at the end of 30 years, 20 years, and 15 years. Then calculate which is the best loan option for Mavis, right? So what exactly do we need to consider here? Remember, we need to consider the total amount that this person is going to pay, Mavis that is. We consider the interest rate that is being given. We consider the number of years that the interest or the loan is going to be repaid. So the very first one will be, we now need to look at how much will she now pay? Remember though our bracket, right? She said I can only afford 5.5 to 7,000. So we're going to try and use this to talk about this, right? So firstly, this is going to be P is equals to X into 1 minus 1 plus I to the exponent of minus N, all of this divided by I, right? The principal amount, which is the outstanding balance, is the 750,000. That's what she wants to take. But she does not know how much she will pay, although she has an idea of what she wants to pay as a customer. And then 1 minus 1 plus, the interest here, remember, was 8.5, right? So it's 0.085 divided by 12 because it's compounded monthly, and this is to the exponent of 360 degrees. Remember, the 360 is 30 multiplied by 12. And then you quickly calculate this, but you must say over first, 0.085 divided by 12. All right, then we go straight to the calculator. The only thing though that we just need to fix is that minus. Just remember the N is a negative, right? So that when you start calculating, it does not give us a problem. Now I'm just going to then write this as one thing. So it will be 750,000 multiplied by the 0.085, all of this divided by 12, and then over, and then inside, on the denominator, I'm going to take the whole bracket that I had on the numerator there, which is 1 minus 1 plus 0,085 divided by 12, all raised to the exponent of negative 360, and then I'm going to close my bracket. And this will give me 5,766. Hey, this is nice because it's kind of in the limit that Mavis has set up, right? So this is x is equals to 5,766 and 85 cents. And 85 cents, right? This is how much she's going to be paying with the first loan. Then the second loan, or the second bank, if she was to take it, remember again, it will be P is equals to 1 minus, there's an X there, 1 plus I to the exponent of minus N divided by I, right? And then I'm just going to substitute the values. Remember, X will be equals to 750,000 multiplied by the 0,09 divided by 12, all of this divided by 1 minus 1 plus 0,09 divided by 12 to the exponent of negative 240 for this one, because it's 20 years. So on the calculator, same thing applies. At the top, it's 750,000. Let me just verify my zeros. Yes, there's 4 of them, multiplied by 0,09 over the 12 divided by 1 minus, so let me just open brackets, 1 minus 1 plus 0,09 over 12. And then this is raised to the exponent of negative 240, close my bracket, and this gives me 6,000. Hey, it's escalating, this amount is going up. So this is 6,747 and how many cents? 94 cents. 94 cents. Please do note these down, right? Because we are going to use them, but I'm just going to put them in a table form for you. And then the last option that the Bank C offers is at the interest of 10.5. So my X will be equals to 750,000 multiplied by 0,105 divided by 12. All of this divided by 1 minus 1 plus the 0,105 divided by 12 to the exponent of negative 180. Guys, just remember that you can manipulate the formula around, right? And then quickly for this one is 750,000 and then into the 0,105 divided by 12 all over 1 minus 1 plus the 0,105 divided by the 12 to the exponent of negative 180 minus 180. Let's close my bracket. Then this is 8,000. Already you can see that we might not take this one. So this is 8,290 and how many cents quickly? 49 cents, right? Now, in a table form, this is actually what is happening here. Do you see? So this means Mavis is going to pay 5,000. This is within the range that she set for herself. Even option B is the same range, right? But option C, already we can see that we are not taking option C here, right? But now, if you look at what is happening here, the best option that Mavis will need to take will actually be option B, right? Because of the total amount that she's actually going to pay. If she's willing to pay the 8,200, then she can take option C because the total interest is less. But here we will then say, we will choose option B, right? Because the bank that is Bank B gives a loan with the interest that will be a bit lesser than the one of 5,000, but this is still within the range of how much she's willing to pay. And then you can even motivate that to say you're choosing option B because the monthly payment is within the range of Mavis, the total interest is cheaper than the total interest of option B, and then option C of option A, I mean, then option C, definitely you're not even thinking about that one because it's 8,000. Number one, the interest might be less, but she cannot afford to pay 8,000. And please don't make the mistakes of revisiting your budget just because this gives you less interest after paying. No, at times on a month-to-month basis, you do need money. So I would then say, Mavis, take option B. Anyways, guys, I really, really hope you understand now how to compare these loans. I know at a later stage, you also gonna get into the workspace and then you will need to do certain things, buy a house, buy a car, and all of those things. You just need to make sure you are informed, and you can always use your financial maths just to try and understand what needs to happen. Guys, let's just take a quick ad break. When we come back, we're going to look at the last concept now of the schemes that we were talking about, right? Please stay tuned. I'll be back just now. Hi guys, welcome back. So we are still looking at analyzing investment options and loans. Now, the last thing that we're actually going to try and look at are these pyramid schemes, right, that people have and people are doing out there. Some people, they work for them, some people, they do not, but let's just understand exactly what is this. And when we're going to look at some advantages, if there are any, some disadvantages, surely I'm sure some of us might claim that there are, and then we'll look at whether you guys can go for it or not. It's not about disproving any scheme because we are not part of, but we are just looking at what the concept is based on math. Now, let's just look at it. So, with a pyramid scheme, this is when investment options, right, that are not ethical and only benefit the initial members of the scheme, right? And you will definitely see with the example that we're going to try and do here what this means. The reason why we are saying they are not ethical is because some people can choose not to take out the money that they need to take out if it is about different people investing a certain amount of money. And then the other thing is these are often unregulated, and in some cases members can be charged with fraud, right? Because you'll find that the initial members of the scheme maybe take the money and they decide maybe not to distribute it amongst the other people or something of that sort. And then also some rules of a pyramid scheme is the members need to make regular investments that are shared at different intervals, right? So this is an example where people are contributing a certain amount of money on a month-to-month basis maybe, or on a week-to-week basis, and then maybe after 2 months they share the money, or after 2 weeks or after 3 weeks. It doesn't really matter. It just depends on what normally happens. And then the other thing is the more levels there are, the more benefits that a person will get from this particular investment, right? Or this pyramid scheme, that is. Then lastly, these returns depend on the growth of the number of investors, right? So how many people are actually part of the investment. Now, an example of a pyramid scheme is there's a founding member who decides to recruit 2 investors. Now, they each agree to invest 1,000 and to be given training, right? Now, they commit to recruit 2 other investors. That's where the trick is. And then at the end of the month, they need to pay the person who recruited them 25% of the total amount in their account. already I'm already imagining what exactly is going to happen here, because it's like this founding member is the one that's just going to really be rich. But let's look at the beginning of this. The beginning of this is everyone, in terms of these three people, is agreeing to pay 1,000 rand. But remember what we said. We said that at the end of the month, the people who were recruited, they need to pay their recruiter 25%, right, of what they have in their account. So it means these two people need to pay this person 25% of what they have, which is 250, right? So in simple terms, it means after they get the training, then they pay 250, and then the person who is the recruiter will then have 1,500, and then the two investors are now left with 750 rands. Then from there, the beginning of period 2, which means month 2, what happens here is the initial person still is sitting on 1.5. The two people that were recruited are sitting on 750. And then remember how this goes. Each person must recruit 2 people, right? So it means this person will need to give off 250 of the amount, and this one will need to give 250 after training, that is. This must give 250, this person as well. And then lastly, this person must also give 250 of their amount, right? So in simple terms, it means after training of level 3, when we talk about after training of level 3, we are mainly talking about after these people actually get trained, they pay the people who recruited them 250 each, so it becomes 500 rands, right? But it does not end there. Now, the 2 people that recruited all these people that have now given them 500 rands, they also need to pay the initial recruiter 25% of what they have. So do you see? Although now they have 750 plus 500 rands, right? They still need to take out that money that they have there and subtract 25% to give to the recruiter, the initial recruiter, right? So it's a very nice concept. It's a very interesting concept. Let me rather say that, because you can only make money when you recruit, and then I can only make money as the recruiter and the starter, right, or the founder of all of this, if you recruit more people, because the more you recruit, the more they pay you, and the more you actually pay me. But what you actually realizing is these people that are recruiting are always getting 250. But you are getting a bit more than 250, because 25% of an amount that is greater than 1,000 rand is always going to be a bit more, you see. So every time you're getting more money as the founder. So after this training, which is the start of training of level 2, right? Of level 2, what does this mean? This person, right, the 2 people who recruited the 4 people, they now sitting on 1,250. What now they need to do with this amount, now they need to subtract 25% of this amount, right? 25, let me just rewrite this correctly. They need to subtract 25% of their amount and then give it to the initial recruiter. They must subtract 25% and then give it to the initial recruiter. So let's just quickly look at what this is. So this person is sitting on 1,250 multiplied by the 25%, which is actually 312 rands and 50 cents. So it means both of these people are now going to pay the initial recruiter 625. If you add this to the amount that he now has, it makes him sit at 2,125 rands. This is in a period of 3 months, people, but he only started with 1,000 rand. He has doubled up, and the people that are following him are not yet even at that level. Hence, they always say the more people you recruit, the more money you're going to get. So you can see it will be that 1,250 minus the 25%, 1,250 minus the 25%, and then the initial recruiter, you are going to add the 312 rands and 50 cents, 312 rands and 50 cents from the two investors that he recruited. So now we will be sitting on, when we end period 2, we are now sitting on 2,125. This is the initial investor, right? Initial investor, we can call him, right? Or we can even call him the founder, right? And then these ones will be the first 2 people that were recruited, and then this will be the 4 people that were then recruited by the 2 people. And then period 3, when it gets to period 3, the 4 people, each of them recruits 2 people, because remember, it's all about recruiting 2 people. So now they recruit 2 people, they recruit 2 people, they recruit 2 people. If we're to work out this again, although we don't really need to, I want you to think about this. If we're to work out this, it means this person will now only have the 750 rands. This will have the 750 after training, that is. This one will have 750. This one will also have 750. All of them will just have 750 after training. Why? Because they are going to pay the people who recruited them the 25%, right? So let's look at what we now have. So this person now is at 8,000 rand, right? From one person, and then if you add another person, it's at 250, which makes it 1,000 rand and 250. They also need to take out some money to give to that person. So let's just quickly try and work this out. So the person with the 750 rands, they will get 250 from the first person, 250 from the second person, right? Not multiply, add. Now the calculator is multiplying 250, right? And then from this, they must take out the 25%, which is that 312, and they're going to give this to the person with the 937 rands and 50 cents. And then you see now this person is sitting at that amount. They also need to subtract the 25% to give back to the initial person. So do you see? It's like these people are sitting on the same amount every time, because the more money that the person is actually getting is the initial recruiter of these people. So that's really how a pyramid scheme works. So now some problems that arise with this scheme is it's unregulated. If one arm of this pyramid scheme falls, it means the whole scheme falls, because this person can say, I am not paying back the person who recruited me, and then it dismantles the whole thing. Now, please always remember, you need to evaluate every investment or loan, and then you need to shop around and ask for a better interest rate. And then if a scheme promises incredible returns, it is probably too good to be true. But anyways, we do try these things, right? Because it's things that some of the people we live with and we stay with try out, and then we see how to do this. Guys, I really hope you now understand how to analyze investments, loans, and how to talk about pyramid schemes. But from me to you, that's the end of our lesson. I hope you've learned a lot and you have some things that you're going to try and investigate on your own. Remember, mathematics is food for the soul. Until next time.